Hey, if you've ever felt like you've been doing everything right in your business, but nothing is landing, then I'm hoping this video will explain exactly why your marketing is not working and what you need to do to fix it. Because I see this all the time with coaches, consultants, service providers, and they're taking action. They're doing the work. All right. They've built their offers, they're putting the content out, they might even be running ads, but they're stuck in this confusing place where nothing seems to move the needle. Okay. And they're asking themselves, like, what is going on? Is it my ads? Is it my funnel? Is it my audience? Maybe it's just the algorithm, right? And they don't know. But here's some good news. The good news is the problem usually is not your funnel, it's not your ad platform, it's not even your strategy, okay? It's something a lot more foundational, okay? And once you fix this, then everything, okay, all those things I talked about before, the ads, the organic, everything's going to start working a lot better, okay? There's a reason for this. And it's because most people think that marketing is about doing more, all right? It's about more content, more offers, more ads, but it's not about doing more, okay? It's just about saying the right thing. See, the real problem is your marketing message, that core idea that makes your perfect buyer, stop scrolling, lean in, and think, wow, here's a guy who finally gets me. This is what I've been looking for, okay? Because if your message isn't landing emotionally, then it doesn't matter how many funnels you build, how many ads you've got going, they're all going to just keep falling flat. So let's break this down, okay? Most entrepreneurs, and especially coaches and consultants, they approach marketing backwards. They start with, what program am I offering? What features is it going to include? How much am I going to charge, right? What funnel should I build? And only after they have all of that, they start thinking, okay, now how do I sell this thing? Now, what you need to understand is your buyer isn't waking up first thing in the morning thinking, man, I wonder if someone's offering a 12-week program, with 10 modules and 2 live coaching calls per week. Nobody's thinking that, right? What they're doing is they're waking up thinking, man, how am I finally going to fix this problem? Like, I've been struggling with this forever. What is the solution? That is what they're thinking, okay? And that's where your message needs to live, okay? It's got to speak to that. Because your message isn't your slogan, it isn't your logo, it's not even your tagline. Your message is the idea that makes the perfect buyer finally feel like you understand them, okay? People love feeling like they're understood. So you want to be the first person that they perceive who actually gets them, okay? Because when that happens, something shifts, okay? That's when they lean in, that's when the trust begins, and that's when the sales just start to flow, okay? So let me give you a completely different example, one you're probably not expecting, but explains this perfectly. Let's think about musicians for a second and how most musicians create. Most musicians create from what's inside of them, okay? What they're feeling, what their experiences are, okay? What they're going through, okay? And that's the music they write, and they hope that the audience is going to connect with them. And sometimes they do. But most of the time, think about how many homeless musicians there are, right? Most of the time, it doesn't work, okay? Because what's resonating with them at that specific time doesn't necessarily resonate with the audience that they're trying to reach, okay? But somebody has done that differently, and they did it brilliantly, okay? Let's talk about the Spice Girls. The Spice Girls did something most artists never even think to do, okay? They started with their audience first. And who's their audience? Their audience is teenage and pre-teenage girls, okay? And they started by asking things like, what kind of music do these kids want to hear? What emotions are they looking for? What fantasies, energy, and identity do they want to feel when they listen to our music, okay? And it's only when they did that do they start creating the songs, when they started creating the look, the choreography, everything, okay? Once they had that understanding. Because they wanted to fit what they were saying and doing with what their audience was craving. So let's just be honest for a second, because if we think about it, the lyrics, tell me what you want, what you really want. Can you tell me what you want, what you really, really want? Those are not the best lyrics. Bob Dylan would never write that stuff, right? Objectively, they're kind of ridiculous. But guess what? They nailed exactly what their audience wanted to feel, okay? They got the energy, they got the fun, they got the identity, okay? They got that shared experience. But they're even smarter than that, okay? because they created 5 different personas. Okay, they got Sporty Spice, Posh Spice, Baby Spice, Scary Spice, and who can forget Ginger, right? Ginger Spice. So each one of these personas was designed to connect with a different segment of their target audience. Okay, because if you didn't relate to Sporty, then you probably connected with Baby, and if you weren't into Posh Spice, then you gotta like Ginger. So these personas, they were built with intention, okay? Because they knew if they covered those 5 broad avatars, they'd capture 90% of the teenage girls they were targeting. So the Spice Girls, they weren't the best singers. They weren't the best dancers. They were better than me, but they weren't the best dancers. And they weren't even serious musicians. I don't even know if anybody played an instrument, right? But they started with the end in mind. They started with that audience resonance first. And that's what great marketing does, okay? Because if you can, like the Spice Girls, they connected emotionally, and that allowed them to explode globally, okay? So don't start by creating what you want to say. You start by understanding what your buyer needs to feel, okay? Let me say that again. You don't start by creating what you want to say. You start by understanding what your ideal buyer needs to feel, okay? And then once you understand that feeling, you build your message around that, okay? Now that's a lot. And if you want to go deeper into actually how to do this, build marketing that resonates like this, fortunately is exactly what I teach inside my Marketing Message Mastery free school group, okay? So this group isn't just about writing better copy, okay? It's about learning how to understand your buyer at that deep emotional psychographic level. It's about crafting that message that makes them feel like you're reading their mind. And then it's about the community teaches you how to take that message and present it in all the different platforms on your organic content, your paid ads, your funnels, your videos, your emails, all that stuff shows you how to plug that message into all that media, okay? So it's a cool community because it's an A to Z system that takes you from like, who am I talking to, all the way through to how do I get my offer out consistently in front of them into delivering that product, okay? So if that sounds like the type of clarity that you've been missing and you want to get rid of all the overwhelm for what to do in your marketing, then I'd love to have you in my community. Like I say, it's free to join. There's a link somewhere around here where you can click and hop on in, go through the modules. We can meet one-on-one, and it'll definitely help you out with your marketing and making more sales, okay? And then after you do that, make sure you check out my next video, because that's where I'm going to show you exactly how to create that ideal customer buyer, that ideal customer avatar. And I'm talking about the real one, okay? Not the 35-year-old yoga instructor from Austin, okay? We're not going to be at that level. So we're going to have a detailed emotional snapshot of your perfect buyer that's just going to make every piece of your marketing so much easier. So if you finally want to stop throwing content at the wall and start creating messages that actually land, then make sure you check out that next video, and I'll either see you there or in my Marketing Message Mastery community. All right, guys, see you there.